ever vigilant Hameed, one of our most powerful trustees and somebody who has been the spirit of the Mohatta Palace movement and the cultural events that we are doing here, has sent a message saying, "Waqt ho gaya." My reply is, I was only waiting 2 minutes for the azan to end, and now I'm prepared to start. Sorry about that, Hameed. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight represents a unique event in the history of Mohatta. It is unique because nobody has worked 13 years, although she tries to hide that because it gives an example of her age. Nobody has worked 13 years on one book, which, starting as a tome on Baloch embroideries, began to expand, to absorb and almost drown the larger political, social, sociological, tribal, economic, aesthetic concept that Naheed Jafri has. For tonight, I will not call her Naheed Jafri Azhar, because a woman who's done that with her husband Kamal Azfar in the front row deserves to be called by her maiden name. So Naheed Jafri is here on this very important event. So are so many other people who have either been my benefactors or benefactors of the project. I won't differentiate them, but I will say some of the most powerful backers of the project. With us, we have Hussein Islam, who's the Prime Minister's advisor caretaker Prime Minister's advisor on political matters. He is here, but he's a powerful backer. He was also the author of the Blue Economy Blueprint for Balochistan's coastal environment. And I think that Tariq Kaisar, the feisty environmentalist for our mangroves, will have a few words to say on that. Zubaida Agha, who is here, Zubaida Jalal, who is here, has been one of our most important backers. From Mand, she not only sent her niece Lulua to work on the project. Lulua is one of the 2 women working on the project. There's a whole host of women, some of them Baloch women, some not. But the 2 most feisty Baloch examples are Lulua from Mand, Lulua Rafiq, and of course Amna Nosharwani / Ni Aliani or something like that, I'm not sure of it. But within Amna's person and Lulua's person, 3 powerful tribes are represented: the Rind, the Nosharwanis, and of course the Jams of Lesbela, who are a little more complex in their origin. We'll call them Arab, as they say, at least temporarily. Also present is Martin Axman. Now, Martin Axman isn't exactly a household name, but 10 years ago, he wrote a powerful book on Kalat, a brilliant book, Back to the Future. Why is he so important to us? Because he is one of that outstanding community when we as Pakistanis were very scant, indifferent, and slow in our research about Balochistan's history and culture. People like Martin Axman came. He, of course, came after the other person, Martin Redelli, the Italian, who got to the archives before him. And by the time Martin came to the archives in Quetta, access had been considerably restricted. But by the time we got to the archives in Quetta, access had been even more restricted. So having Martin here, who's here for the KLF, is a wonderful moment to commemorate the Balochistan Nama launch. He has only seen glimpses of the book. He will get a little more of it today. Please remember, do not believe that what you're looking for is not in this book. In the 8 volumes that Naheed Jafri has been able to put together, there is nothing significant missing. What is more important is she's fought like a cat. Cats at 79 are not pretty creatures, but she is a pretty creature. She's fought like a cat on every part of the presentation that had to be excluded so we can make it proper in terms of time. Also present are a range of artists and textile experts, Adila Suleiman And of course, there is Shahnaz Ismail and artists like Durya and actors of importance like Rehana Sehgal. There are a lot of people here. But if I were to acknowledge one person in my family, it won't be my sister Rovina and my niece Vesma, but my aunt Pasha, who just, mashallah, turned 100 2 months ago and is still part of us. So these are the people. Also here, Salman Farooqi, a close friend, who is a major supporter of Mohatta through many years in government and subsequently. So I'm going, and of course Ghazi Salahuddin, who we sometimes grab from the audience and put on the podium to be part of our presentations. I think by now you've gathered the secret is out. It started as a small venture, the Mohatta Festival of the Arts, the 25-year celebrations. In the words of you people, not just ours, has been an outstanding success in establishing a close rapport with the Mohatta community. Also here is our architect, Tariq Kaisa. Hameed is going to begin vigorous work on the underground auditorium for 200 people with a coffee shop, foyer, and bookshop above very soon. But as of yesterday, we saw the foundations for the plinths that he's constructing for the statues dug up. And as he informed me a little while ago, it's solid underneath. We had to move a foot away. Well, I'm glad we're solid underneath, because this house, ladies and gentlemen, this cultural house, your house, what you have helped make, is built on a rock, not on shifting sands. So please remember that when they move against us again in the courts to try and make us a medical college, we will fight it tooth and nail. And every hand in this audience, please raise it to demonstrate your support that Mohatta should continue as Karachi and maybe Pakistan's foremost museum. So I'm going to thank Hameed Akhund. Hameed was the person who has brought Mohatta, its particular blend of cultural programming, its music, and its lectures together in his inimitable way, and he's concentrating the barrage of his energy on the massive Abda Parveen concert, another service free of cost where we expect several thousand people in the larger garden, another service from Mohatta to the people of Karachi. So, just to quickly tell you that we are in a particularly dense period where you are keeping us on tenterhooks by booking late for your program. And we've got, I think we have another program this week, which is a fabulous discussion on A Tale of Two Cities, Uch and Multan. Uch and Multan presently in the southern Punjab, but in its early part of its history, as much a part of amorphous Sindh as of Punjab. So we have coming there the two wonderful the two wonderful heritage architects, Yasmin Chima and Tanveer Hassan, who worked on the famous Uch NCA project in the 80s. And we have Hassan Ali Khan, whose Cambridge University Press book on the Sohrawardi order in 14th century Multan will provide us a major interaction in the southern part of the Punjab. After that, on the 27th, it is our program from the Lahore Literary Festival, the surprise program, Mehreen Chidda Razvi from the School of Oriental African Studies, who is also one of the Nasser Khalili curators for Islamic art and an avid architectural history journalist. She will be joining us as a gift of the Lahore Literary Festival and Razi Ahmed for our 25th anniversary celebrations. In further commemoration of Mohatta LLF relations, the Lahore Literary Festival has adopted our program for the Hamza Nama, which Fakir Jalzdin and Shahnaz Jalzdin did in Lahore, and they will be adopting a couple of programs next year. So I think the osmosis that the Mohatta communities work so hard to achieve between the cities is very much ongoing. After the Noor Jahan and Jahangir, the architectural legacy of power, on the 27th, on the first will be Mazar Bazaar, which will have our very own associate curator, Saima Zehri, and the one and only wonderful Durya Kazi in a conversation on where the sequel to the book, the second phase, is taking us. And ladies and gentlemen, on the 7th, please cooperate with us. There's a huge advance rush on the Abda Parveen concert, and we will try and satisfy everybody. Not completely, but at least in a minimal way, because we expect 3,000 to 4,000 people for that program. So that will be the end of the fireworks for the Mohatta 25th anniversary. After telling you about the 25th anniversary and noting that our chairs are now almost filled, I hope Saima Zehri and company, the team, Akhtar, Khurram, and everybody else, Fariha, are able to get us extra chairs, and I will ask Saima to introduce the program.
Thank you, Hameed Haroon Sahab. Salam, greetings. Thank you for being here with us today to commemorate 25 years of the Mohatta Palace Museum. I'm Saima Zehri, additional curator here. Welcome. Welcome to our distinguished lecture series and to our 9th event, Enigma of Baloch Tribal Embroideries by Ms. Naheed Jafri Azfar, who takes us on an incredible journey lasting several years, an extensive historical, sociological, geographical, and in fact, artistic exploration of our largest province. In fact, an understudied region of our country cloaked in mystery. Her work is an immense contribution towards demystifying this terrain. In my conversation with Ms. Jafri Azfar, she wished to express gratitude to Akram Dost Baloch Sahab, Jamila Dawood, and Zubaida Jalal Sahiba, who generously shared their collections of embroidery, jewelry, and their homes and hearts. This primary research led to her recognizing the necessity to delve into archaeological surveys and, in fact, of course, secondary research. Now, returning to the embroideries, she discovered that Baloch motifs are shared with an entire swath of the world. I repeat, entire swath of the world. This could potentially be due to the Silk Route, invasions and trade over centuries, tracing it back to prehistoric times. And these motifs continue to flourish today, transcending boundaries. Today, we celebrate the Baloch, their distinctive and exquisite culture, and of course, Miss Naheed Jafri Azfar. Welcome.
Gentlemen, before we begin, I feel it necessary to warn you. If you believe in us, this is the beginning of a long journey. Nowhere in this country is there over-enthusiastic funding for an 8-volume work, the Balochistan Nama. The book is 8 volumes. The first 4 volumes are Naheed Jafri's cultural odyssey into the 4 cultural regions of Balochistan that she identifies. 1, western and southern Balochistan. 2, central Balochistan, including Kalat. 3, northern Balochistan, including Quetta. And 4, eastern Balochistan, including Sibbi and perhaps Dera Ghazi Khan across the border. But nowhere is there money for this. We, following Naheed, believe that this effort is crucial. The Balochistan Nama was created 13 years ago when Naheed's son, Umar Azfar, passed away, and she felt the need to pay him a tribute in an area of concern, aesthetic and otherwise, to her and to her family, the future of Balochistan. She comes from the breed of people who believes knowledge can help things become better. We hope governments in Pakistan, we hope caretaker governments in Pakistan, we hope that transitory administrations in Pakistan we hope establishments in Pakistan get this message. We want to show the Baloch people we care about their history, about their heritage, and about their culture. Ladies and gentlemen, when money for the book ran out, Naheed Jafri sold her artworks, she sold her shawls, she sold everything, her rare books, her collection of 5 decades to pay for the basic administrative work which she will never recoup. She's not a shareholder in its corporation, she is its blood. So let us pay tribute to her, to Naheed, and let's speak by word of mouth to everybody. Let's speak to everybody, let's raise our voices. Balochistan Nama should become a reality, because if it hadn't been for a handful of academics and some Baloch academics in the last few decades, it would have been a forgotten story. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask to speak to you Naheed Azfar, Jafri.
Thank you, Hameed. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the Balochistan Nama, Volume 1. Here are the 4 main cultural regions of Balochistan. Number 1, Western and Southern Balochistan, including Lasbela and Kech, in pink. 2, Central Balochistan, including Kalat, in grey. 3, Northern Balochistan, including Quetta, in ochre. And 4, Eastern Balochistan, including Sibi, in green, with the Punjab-Baloch border running through it. Firstly, we begin with Western and Southern Balochistan, with Lasbela in Kech, a vast region. This cultural region covers the intricacies collectively of Chari, Nushki, Haroon, Makran, Avaran, the coastal belt, and Lasbela. The miniature we have commissioned for the cover of this volume shows the first Baloch and British intrusion into Balochistan in 1811. The visit of Lieutenant Henry Pottinger, suitably disguised as a merchant, sitting on the floor adjacent to Jamil Khan I. The Alyani ruling family of the Jams is believed to be descended from an Arab, Abdul Munaf of the Quraysh tribe, who migrated to Jamnagar in present-day Gujarat. When the Mughal Emperor Jahangir overran Jamnagar, the ruling chief fled to Lasbela, re-establishing his family's fortunes. On the left is an engraving of Jamil Khan I, 1776 to 1818, and on the right are the ancestral tombs of the Jams of Lasbela. First of all, let me make a brief comment on the prehistory of southern and western Balochistan, approximately 4,000 years ago, which demonstrates the extensive trading ties between the 4 main regional trading centers surrounding the water mass we now know as the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, including the Straits of Hormuz and the northern Arabian Sea, during the period 2500 to 1700 BC. The 4 main regional trading centers were Mesopotamia, or present-day Iraq, containing the ancient Assyrian and Babylonian civilizations. You see a bronze head of the ruler, the Sargon of Akkad, 3rd millennium BC. Trade between these 4 interconnected mercantile centers reached a peak during his reign. Dilmun or Bahrain, and adjoining islands on the western coastline of the Persian Gulf. You see a soft stone seal, a symbol of the trade from Dilmun, decorated with human and zoomorphic figures found in Falaka Islands. 3. Magan was considered to be present-day Oman and Iranian and Pakistani Makran, on both sides of the narrow Straits of Hormuz. This particular cuneiform tablet from Mesopotamia to suppliers in Makan contains a significant complaint with respect to the wrong grade of copper having been delivered to Mesopotamia. At approximately 1750 BC, copper was a key item in the trade between Magan and Old Babylonia. Number 4. Meluhha comprises the vast area we know as the Indus Valley Civilization. The longhorn buffaloes depicted in this seal are thought to have come from the Indus Valley, testifying to exchanges in black boats between Mesopotamia and this region. This huge maritime network witnesses the movement of valuable traded commodities such as wood, fragrances, metals, ivory, and gems. Debates over the exact location of these trading territories are ongoing, but by the 1960s, confidence grew in identifying Magan with the entire Makran coast and Oman, included as one territory. Were Dravidians the original inhabitants of Magan and Meluhha? And is there a link between the Brahis in the present day Kalad district and the Dravidian populations of the Deccan Peninsula? This remains a largely unanswered question. This is an inspiring image of the Makran coast. The hills positioned inland are an extraordinary array of some of the most implausible shapes, some so unbelievable that they appear in the guise of monumental architecture, spires, forts, and minarets, emerging as if from these ridges. Just above Makran lie the monumental remains of the Haroon fort, one of the 12 forts built by Azad Khan, the Nawab of Haroon, 1831 to 1885. Further north is the lunar landscape of Jafri, a stunning visual effect, which was the site of Pakistan's nuclear experiment in 1998. But now let us move back to Laspela in the early Vedic period, after the presumed invasion of the Aryans. This is the shrine of Hinglaj Mata in Laspela, one of the important shrines of the Indus religion of the Rig Veda that still exists today. Hinglaj Mata was the eldest of 7 sister deities, of which one was the vengeful goddess Kali, after whom Kalad may perhaps have been named. Adjoining the shrine of Hinglaj is the cone of the sacred Mount Chandragupta, a mud volcano spewing sprays of mud into the air at periodic intervals, an important site of pilgrimage for all Hindu pilgrims visiting Hinglaj. The regions of Laspela and Makran, referred to by Greek historians as Petrosia, are famous in ancient classical history, mainly due to the invasion and travails of Alexander the Great of Macedonia and his armies in 326 BC. Alexander is seen in this Hellenistic image is the first well-known invader of Makran and Laspela, who ravaged this coastline and whose army suffered untold miseries on the way back to the capital of the Persian Empire, Persepolis. His naval fleet, led by his admiral Nearchus, sailed parallel along the coast back to Persia. Southern Balochistan was to continue to witness invasions by the Arabs, the Persians, the Baloch at various times in its history after the death of Alexander, well into the Islamic medieval period. So, we come to who were the Baloch, who subsequently dominated such vast tracts of Balochistan, a seemingly empty, arid land strategically placed between the Central Asian hordes, the Persian Empire, and the Sultanate of Delhi. Firdausi's Shahnama, or the Book of King, makes one of the earliest mentions of the Baloch in a reference to their red-plumed helmet or crest that resembled a corkscrew. Please note at the top of the miniature. They are said to have fought alongside the Sasanian monarch Khosrow's army. The prevalence of Sasanian legends and myths in that southern Caspian region continued at the time Firdausi wrote the Shahnama several hundred years later. Historians trace the Baloch and Koch as living in disharmony in Kerman and coastal areas south of Kerman, and the gradual migration of huge retreating nomadic Baloch armies into Makran and Las Bela, who came under pressure of Arab armies sweeping into Iran in the 7th century. There are many theories of the origin of the Baloch, even amongst their own tribes, but a theory that links them to an origin in northern Iran is probably the one that comes closest to reality. Subsequently, the Baloch tribes were composed of elements from Central Asia and Iran, and different tribes reflecting different mixtures of absorptions. Amongst the cultural and military invaders who entered and traded with Balochistan are the Omanis, who assembled a vast empire along the rim of the western Indian Ocean and Africa and created a furious trade in slaves even before the advent of the Portuguese. A photograph aboard the British slave ship HMS London depicts rescued slaves and their captors off the East African coast. The slave trade's roots stretch back to pre-Islamic times, with Africans being exported to the Middle East and later to India as domestic servants, soldiers, and laborers. By the 20th century, the number of African slaves, termed Shidi, who had integrated themselves into tribal populations as servants in aristocratic families and in trader workshops along the Balochistan coast, was large. Today, in a powerful photograph by Arif Mahmood, we see the Shidis commemorating the rites of the Shidi Mela at Mangopir through the sacred medium of ancient crocodiles. The most famous rhythmic beat in Baloch music of the leva has its origins in mesmerizing Shidi dance. And now we come to costumes. By the late 19th and early 20th century, formal clothes worn by the aristocratic Baloch males had been greatly influenced by the princely attire of North India. In this group portrait, the sons of Jam Mir Khan II of Las Bela wear heavily embroidered outer garments with beautiful gold thread couching. With females, the preferred garment in this region has always been the classic pashk. Its anatomy is divided into varying handspans, covering 6 distinct areas of embroidery: the neck panel, the front pocket, the sleeves, the cuff, the side seams, and the hem. This 100-year-old pashk, embroidered in Makran, depicts the pure classical style with the Ridu tick motif at the neck panel. A vintage kurta from the ruling family of Las Bela exhibits North Indian influence with tilla embroidery, which in this case is executed on Chinese embroidered silk. How the lesser half lived may still be a matter of exquisite beauty. This shisha embroidery, with other surface stitches from the upper garment of a Las Bela fisherwoman, is one of the most spectacular manifestations of shisha embroidery found in Balochistan, possibly with influence from Western Sindh. The iconic Makran motif, Gule Daranjuk, is highly intricate in its execution. This thing here. The stepped motif at the top of the neck is frequently followed by a phallic form underneath, rendering it into a powerful fertility symbol or unbridled pashks. This motif from Avaran is an exquisite vintage example of Hashnal Gule Daranjuk, the eight-petaled flower, which has a Brahui provenance from Mashkir. Meanwhile, further north in Haran, we encounter the Kaponal, full and half square motif, in a two-color spectrum in surface stitches. At the northern extremity, at the Afghan border in this region, we encounter the Barait style. This particular style is a convergence that derives from the three main ethnic groups of this region: the Baloch, the Brahui, and the Pashtun. And now for jewelry in this region. This remarkable photograph shows jewelry at the turn of the 19th century worn by ladies from the Jam of Las Peras household. On the left, you see an exquisite and now rarely seen ear ornament composed of three heavy golden durs or circles, suspended by a black thread, the banduk, from the crown of the wearer and attached to smaller bali grains on the outer cartilage of the ear. The ensemble on both sides is attached by a banded barik chain to create a perfect balance of ear ornamentation. The image on the right is a portable grooming kit worn by women in the region along the neckline, referred to as jigig. Attached to the jigig are the cosmic accoutrements. Left to right is an ear cleaner, middle a carrier for perfume oils, or sometimes substituted by a sacred prayer amulet, and on the extreme right is a toothpick. Our second cultural region is central Balochistan, including Kalat. This cultural region is divided into Saravan, the northern part, and Jhalavan, the southern part, with the capital Kalat between them. The tribal population of this region is multilingual and mainly Brahui speaking. Historically, the Khanate of Kalat covered a total area of more than 77,700 square kilometers and also included the important fertile areas of Kutchi, which was frequently contested between the Kalora rulers of Sindh and the Khanate. The historian Naina Swidler believes that the economy of a tribal chiefdom became self-sustainable and subject to expansion by the addition of Kutchi to the royal income of the Khans and to the additional revenues of the tribal chiefs in Saravan and Jhalavan. The cover of this volume is a commission miniature depicting the murder of Mehrab Khan, the Khan of Kalat, by the British Army of the Indus during the First Afghan War in 1839. This is the Kalat fort or Miri in the 1920s, prior to the Quetta earthquake. Here is the same Miri in ruins after the devastating Quetta earthquake of 1935. In Kalat town, there is a remarkable temple dedicated to the goddess Kali. The original, several hundred years old statue of Kali that was once in this temple is believed to have been smuggled out to Calcutta in the 1990s during communal riots in Kalat. Kali Mata is the younger sister of Hinglaj Mata, and the temple in Kalat is believed to be the earliest and the most important temple dedicated exclusively to Kali in South Asia. There are areas around Kalat where the first fast dwindling juniper forests of the magnificent Harboi Hills come to life during the spring or Bahar. The very act of going to Harboi, when a profusion of flowers and herbs covers everything, is termed Bahar Khana. literally eating the spring. There was an annual migration from the highlands of Kalat, tribesmen in Saravan and Jalawan, going to the lowlands at Kachi in the winter. This annual cycle of migration increasingly led to the sedentarization of Kalat tribes and movements away from pastoral culture. The hills in and around Jhalwan are studded with streams like this gorge in the Mula Pass, east of Kalat, and is considered one of the most verdant in Balochistan. The Brahui nomads and shepherds of Jhalwan moved annually through this pass into Kachi and Sindh for the winter period. Mir Nasir Khan I, 1749 to 1794 AD, was destined to dominate the Khanate of Kalat at a time that every historian considers its most glorious period. He has become a source of fascination for Baloch nationalists. His main strengths consisted in befriending Ahmad Shah Durrani, the Afghan monarch, during military campaigns in which he participated with Durrani in Iran and Punjab, a tactic which earned Kalat the gift of Shal, Quetta, and yielded immense benefits to the Khanate, a legacy his successors over the next 5 decades managed to squander. He was an iconic builder and creator of some of the most important institutions within Baloch society and governance. After him, the Rivaj of the tribal chiefdom of Kalat collapsed in a toxic blend of Brahui Sardars locked in a never-ending power struggle with his successors, all of it being completely enmeshed with inducements and bribes linked to Britain's forward policy in the region. In the 19th century, the Khanate of Kalat found itself by a strange configuration of fate and geopolitical ambitions at the epicenter of 3 mutually suspicious powers that adjoined it: Iran, Afghanistan, and the British in India. The ostensible purpose was for British India to confront any hypothetical invasion by Tsarist Russia on its western frontier, but also to solidify lines of communication and a burgeoning trade between the British Empire and the Central Asian countries through Afghanistan. The Khanate was destined, therefore, to serve as an initial sacrifice to Lord Auckland's new forward policy. Mir Mehrab Khan II, 1817 to 1839, is shown here, flanked by the 2 architects of the British forward policy in the First Afghan War. On the left is Lord Auckland, the Governor General of India, and on the right the colourful Alexander Burnes, explorer, military officer, and diplomat. These 2 gentlemen were almost wholly responsible for the arrogant execution of Mehrab Khan II and the setback received by Britain in the First Afghan War. For a clear route from British India to Kandahar, it was necessary for trade caravans and armies to pass unhindered back and forth through the Bolan Pass and to secure the goodwill of the Saravan tribal Sardars who were involved in ceaseless conflicts with the Khans of Kalat. Additionally, frequent raiding by the lawless Maris and uncontrollable Pashtun tribes like the Kakars and the Achakzais on the way to Shah, Quetta, and Kandahar, admirably laced by covert machinations by the Khanate and its dangerous bureaucracy, all were to result in a campaign for the British that was doomed to failure. Alexander Burnes managed to entangle himself with Mehrab Khan's intriguing Darog. When the requisite grain supplies for the army of Indus were found not to be forthcoming from Kalat's coffers as per treaty, and British policy in Afghanistan had reached a stage of total collapse, Alexander Burnes persuaded Lord Auckland to acquiesce in the murder of Mehrab Khan. What Mehrab Khan failed to achieve during his unstable rule, he achieved in death. The horror faced by the tribal chiefs of Saravan at the British intended annexation of Kachchi, Shal and Pishin led to the collapse of the British-sponsored pretender Khan Shahnawaz. Eventually, two of Mehrab Khan's sons were to succeed him as Khan on strictly controlled terms. Today, Mehrab Khan is considered a national hero by Baloch historians. On the left, Mir Khudadad Khan, 1857 to 1893, and on the right, Sir Robert Sandeman, agent to the Governor General, 1835 to 1892, who during his tenure became a master handler of the Baloch and Brahmi Sardars and their egos. Sandeman's meteoric rise was followed by a successful exclusion of Sindh's colonial government from Kalat's policy and its transfer into his own capable hands. He was close to Khudadad Khan, who he manipulated at will, but with such high respect, always conducting himself as a seeming subordinate at the high altar of Baloch tribalism. A group photograph taken during the Treaty of 1876 showing Balochistan's mighty Nawabs, Tumandars and Sardars, all seated at the Khan of Kalat's feet. British representatives led by Sir Robert Sandeman were the only ones allowed to chance. Sandeman, known for befriending and bribing Baloch and Brahi tribes, played a key role in the Treaty of 1876, which effectively marked the end of Kalat's autonomy under British rule. All that remained was a formal phraseology of Kalat's independence. That subsequently gave way to the status of Kalat as a princely state by the Government of India Act of 1935. Kalat was never to be the same after 1876. On the left is Sir James Bastable, the British agent to the Governor General in Balochistan. On the right is a portrait of Mahmud Khan II, 1893 to 1931, Khan of Kalat. Brown was succeeded at Sandeman's death, deposed Khudadad Khan on charges of murder and extortion and inhuman acts including forcible castration of his subjects, replacing him with his son, Mahmud Khan, who was to rule till 1931. Mahmud Khan's period represents the lowest point of the Kalat Khanate's history and the triumph of British imperial control of the former Khanate of Kalat, not only in British Balochistan, but also in territories adjacent to Kalat proper, Laspela and Kharam, which were gradually elevated to feudatories enjoying distinct de facto powers under the Khan. This was to lay the scenario for the future accession to Pakistan of these states, in addition to Makran in 1948. On the left, Mahmud Khan's brother Azam Khan, the son of the deposed Khudadad Khan in coronation regalia, who ruled Kalat for 2 years from 1931 to 1933. On the right, Azam Khan's son, Mir Ahmed Yar Khan, also shown in his coronation robes, ruled from 1933 to 1948 and was the last of Kalat's Khans. By the early 1940s, the landscape of Kalat had changed. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah continued to serve as legal counsel for Ahmed Yar Khan of Kalat until a few months before partition. The Khan had shifted his palace from the ruined Miri to a sparkling new palace complex planted with Canadian maple trees nearer Kalat town. In this historic town, where Mr. Jinnah used to stay during his visits to Kalat, Ahmed Yar Khan, in a grand gesture, had Mr. Jinnah weighed in silver and gold and donated the monetary value towards the All India Muslim League vigorous campaign to secure Mr. Jinnah's sole spokesmanship for representing British India's Muslims. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah with Mr. Ahmed Yar Khan of Kalat in Karachi during the period leading to the accession of Kalat to Pakistan. In the background is seen Pakistan's first Governor General's ADC, Mian Atta Rabbani. The Qaid was to lose patience with Ahmed Yar Khan's initial reluctance to accede to Pakistan, while the Khan insisted that an independent Kalat would always remain Pakistan's friend. But Mr. Jinnah's advisors were to have none of it. And now we discuss costumes. Aristocratic males were richly attired at the Kalat court. A rare photograph shows the pretender Sher Dil Khan, 1863 to 1864, who, as the result of British support and the perpetual rebelliousness of the Brahmi Sardars of Kalat, managed to remove Khan Khudadad Khan for a short period. Of particular interest is the use of the Kashmiri shawl worn by him as a turban and the lungi worn by the two men flanking him who sit on the floor. A Brahmi tribal Motbar and his henchmen in Kalat, draped in shawls and lungis, shown here from the People of India, 1868, which was a compiled series of original photographic prints of the diverse races and tribes in the British Empire. Lungis worn as turbans or wrapped round the body like a bandolier, slanted across one shoulder, were created in many parts of Sindh and Bharatpur and sometimes ordered directly from Banaras, the most expensive being the creations in pure silk with end borders in pure gold or silver yarn. Owning a lungi bestowed by the Khan as a gift was considered a high mark of distinction. Mahmud Khan had a passion for lungis and was a proud owner of hundreds of such creations. The embroidery for females in this area is characterized by three sub-regional stylistic traditions. Number one, Saravan. Number two, the villages of Sani Shoran, which comprise a distinctive style. And number three, Chalavan. Here is a vintage bashk from Saravan. The delicate fabric, woven with metallic and silk yarn, was known as zarbaft, brought over to Balochistan by Hindu merchants from India. A second example is from Saravan, a stunning taro in Shastari Mosa. A taro is a separate piece of cloth embroidered from end to end, which is then stitched onto the bashk. Shastari involves 6 threads picked up from the base, while Mosam is a counted thread technique, which, in this case, is executed in paraes or Florentine stitch. The second distinctive style is that of the village of Sani and Shora. The embroidery of these villages is remarkable for its use of bright colors, reds and oranges, and extremely fine, meticulous needlework. The 8-pointed stars appear as a highlight along with a jagged rhomboid border, a motif specific to this area. Another distinctive style of embroidery is that of nomads from Chalavan. The example shown here utilizes the kundi gul or stepped gul motif in a taro, presumably from the village of Aranji, nomads of the Mengal tribes in Chalavan. The outlining border in the taro contained 2 additional panels in the lower part with very fine rhomboid latticework embroidery termed single tasmor, a form of Florentine stitch which imparts a smooth feel mirroring the base of a tas or bow. And now for just a few examples of jewelry in this region. On the left is the great-granddaughter of the last Khan of Kalat, a Lasbela princess, wearing her family jewelry inherited from the Khans of Kalat and the Jams of Lasbela. All pieces are executed in Kundan technique with precious and semi-precious stones. On the right are a pair of gem-encrusted belt clasps made of gold and studded with uncut diamonds. This piece was worn by several reigning Khans of Kalat. The left piece of aristocratic neckwear hails from a widely prevalent use of toques throughout the world from prehistoric times. This particular piece from Kalat, from one of the important tribal collections of Saruman, weighs 40 tolas in gold and is encrusted with pearls, emeralds, and rubies, an atavistic delight for the eyes. On the right side is displayed a trapezoid jeweled amulet, tabis. In the center is emblazoned a large square-cut emerald surrounded by a floral meenakari design. Our third cultural region is northern Balochistan, including Quetta. Representing the Pashtun belt of Balochistan, this cultural region extends from Quetta, formerly known as Shah. The word Shal has a similar connotation to a khilaf, a gift of honor that was bestowed by Ahmed Shah Durrani upon Mir Nasir Khan I in the 18th century. This was added to the areas procured by the British from Afghanistan after the Treaty of Gandamat in 1879. The cover of this volume is a commissioned miniature depicting Amir Yaqub Khan, Amir of Afghanistan, signing the Treaty of Gandamat during the period of the Second Afghan War in 1879. On the way to Job, Balochistan's mountainous landscape assumes an otherworldly beauty. An early image from the turn of the last century of Job, of Fort Sandeman, formerly known as Apposai. The first European to visit Shal, Quetta, was the astute British traveller Charles Mason in 1828, who described the town as being situated close to the Miri, the mud fort of Quetta. This here is an 1880 photograph of the fort, which no longer exists today. Lord Auckland was appointed Governor General of India in 1836. He perceived threats through Afghanistan from Russia and Persia. Despite the Afghan Emir, Dost Muhammad Khan's assurances, he deposed him to install a more compliant Shah Shuja. The Khanate of Kalat, forced to support the British intrusion, became instead a significant casualty in the war that followed. This is a depiction of a pavilion terrace of the palace of Shah Shuja, Amir of Afghanistan, in Kabul. In a grand ceremony, the British installed the formerly exiled Shah Shuja as the ruler of Afghanistan, aiming to secure an over-friendly regime. As earlier mentioned, the whole British forward policy ended in a disaster on the empire's western frontier. But not so in the Second Afghan War, 40 years later. On the left is a group portrait of Amir Sher Ali, ruler of Afghanistan, with leading Pashtun Sardars and noblemen. In 1842, after the British Army of Retribution had done its worst, it abruptly withdrew from Kabul, returning Afghanistan to Dost Muhammad. By then, the Tory government, under Benjamin Disraeli, with an assertive foreign policy, had taken over. In Afghanistan, on the other hand, Sher Ali, son of Dost Muhammad, faced new internal and external pressures, all of which culminated in the Second Afghan War in 1878. On the right is a print showing the British Army in 1878 as it marched through a rugged terrain entering Afghanistan by force. Here we see enflamed Afghan tribesmen firing upon them from the heights. The Treaty of Gandamak, signed in 1879 between Kavanari, representing the British government, and Afghan Amir Yaqub Khan, marked a pivotal turning point in the Second Anglo-Afghan War. It aimed for Afghan compliance under British foreign guidance, resulting in the handing over of territories including Pishin, Sibbi, Harnai, and Thaljotiali to be added to British Balochistan. The British also gained control over the Khyber and Mijni passes, aiming to establish a permanent buffer zone between British India and Russian influence in Central Asia. And now we turn to the rich traditions of costume and jewelry in northern Balochistan. In 1848, a British artist describes the Kakars, a very large tribe, whose winter attire is a sheepskin jacket and a felt cloak, with closed sleeves serving as improvised pockets. The drawing depicts some lower-level Kakar chieftains, their attire resembling that of commoners, while the figure on the right is adorned with summerwear. In northern Balochistan, the ust kameez is critical for understanding female costumes. This highly structured garment features a diversity of ornamentation such as metal chains, pom-poms, tassels, and beads. Commonly, the neck panel, sleeves, and the hem are intricately embroidered or decorated. This particular ust kameez has a round neck with a front opening called grevan, reserved exclusively for married women. Another distinctive feature is the phallic-shaped narrow rectangle with a triangular head juxtaposed on the abdomen, known as kunakai. This also is exclusive to married women. This is a bridal ust kameez of the Mandokhel tribe, largely settled in Jo. What distinguishes Mandokhel embroidery from the other tribes is their technique and finesse in creating pure chain-stitch thread embroidery with a much lower reliance on tilla. The Mandokhel embroidery does not incorporate any other decorative device apart from discs or pom-poms that are placed at the corners of the yoke or below it. The Shirani and Nasr nomadic neck pieces with a small and narrow gala consist of a fairly basic square shape in which the embroidery is marked out into 4 quadrants, each embroidered in a form of raised satin stitch amongst other surface techniques. This is an Afghan Kuchis dress worn amongst the Duma nomads. It is an unparalleled example of pure nomadic embroidery at its most flamboyant. Notice the incredible bodice and the countless embellishments that seem to flow out of it, and the absolutely breathtaking kunakai. On the left is an image of a Durrani nomad wearing a pair of sar tawizan on her crown. Also notice the diversity of beaded necklaces she wears, some with coins and some without. On the right is a Shinwari nomad whose jewelry, every single piece, the very long earrings, the choker, hair clips, the huge multi-strand necklaces, all of them were entirely created from beads. The Shinwari nomads, traders par excellence, are one of the most important nomadic groups in northern Balochistan. In this region, the torque is known as ozai. The example on the left is a variation of the ornament worn in Afghanistan. The one on the right is a highly complex version worn by the Hazara tribe in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Shown here is an extremely heavy nose ornament known as nata, shaped like an earring. It is encrusted with gems with a beaded chain hooked to the hair to alleviate its weight. This is worn in certain areas by married women. Our fourth cultural region is Eastern Balochistan, including Sibi and Kutch. This cultural region, Eastern Balochistan, encompasses the Baloch areas extending beyond the Brahui Belt, which includes locales such as Bolan, Sibi, Murree, and Bukti. Additionally, it comprises the Baloch majority regions of southern Punjab, namely Dera Ghazi Khan and Rajapur, located as shown here to the right of the green border. Eastern Balochistan represents a unique fusion of Baloch, Sindhi, and Punjabi cultures. The cover of this volume is a commissioned miniature depicting the signing of the Treaty of 1876. Here the mighty Tumandars and Sardars, including the Lagari, Rakshani, Mazaris, and Kurds, among others, have been assigned to sit respectfully at the feet of the Khan, while the representatives of the British government are all seated on chairs, including Sandeman. This is a late 19th century photograph of the Bolan Railway in Balochistan, a historic crossroads connecting South Asia with Central Asia. Contemporary observers of the time considered the steep gradient of this rail track to have been a modern engineering marvel. In this photograph of Jhal, the Maxi tribe's headquarters, stands this tomb belonging to the Sardar's family. There are several other such historic tombs spread over this area. Reflecting on my visit to Dera Ghazi Khan, one of the standout architectural gems was the renowned shrine of Tonsa Sharif, dedicated to Hazrat Muhammad Sulaiman Tonswa. This is a photograph of a passageway at the shrine, adorned with the crumbling hand-painted Kashikar technique. Meet Chakarin, the hero of soul-stirring Baloch legends, known for his outstanding bravery, led the Second Baloch Confederacy, a united front against external pressures. His leadership extended to supporting Mughal Emperor Humayun in recapturing Delhi. This is a photograph of Chakar's tomb, located at Sadgara, Okara. And now for tribes in eastern Balochistan. This is a group photograph of Nawab Mir Bakhsh Khan, chief of the Murree tribe, and Nawab Sir Shahbaz Khan, Sardar of the Bukti tribe. This group was probably photographed during the Delhi Darbar in 1902 or 1903. The Buktis reside along the southern Punjab and northern Sindh borders. Amongst them, in the olden days, looting and raiding caravans was an accepted mode of existence, undertaken under stringent rules of distribution of the goods thus acquired. These constant forays posed challenges to the Sindh frontier forces, troubled the Punjab government, and strained relations with Kalab. In 1845, Sir Charles Napier, after his recent triumph at Miani, launched his rigorous hill campaigns against the Buktis, demonstrating yet again his effective tactics. This painting of a scene from Sir Francis Hastings Doyle's poem, The Red Thread of Honor, captures a moment in the clash between the British forces and the Marines. British soldiers who had fallen were honored by British propagandists for their supposedly valiant fight by the Murree tribesmen, who in this poem allegedly tied red threads around their dead wrists. On the left is a Domki landholder, and on the right are members of the Khetran tribe in the 19th century. The Khetrans are an ethnic fusion of Baloch, Jat, and Afghan blood. On the left is a member of the Jamali tribe, and on the right are two members of the Mazari tribe. The Jamalis form an interface between Balochistan, Sindh, and southern Punjab. The Mazaris migrated to Lehri from Kech Makran in Balochistan, but settled eventually on the British side of the border in 1849. On the left is the Khosa tribesman, and on the right is the Laghari Nawab. The Khosas lived at the foot of the Suleiman Hills, fanning across to the Indus with a large section living in Bahawalpur and Sindh. The Lagharis, headquartered at Choti, is one of the largest tribes of Dera Ghazi Khan, with four main branches in the Punjab and one branch in Sindh, the Talputs. The headgear of the Laghari Nawab closely resembles what was also worn by the aristocracy in Sindh. And now to costumes and jewelry in eastern Balochistan. On the left is a 19th century photograph of a Bukti chieftain who had, along with many other men of the ruling classes, adopted the North Indian intricately embroidered joka. On the right is a photograph of a young Nawab Akbar Bukti, elegantly dressed in traditional all-white Baloch costume. The traditional Baloch mail shirt made of white cotton, sometimes with minimal embroidery, also in white, featured unique closures, including wooden peg-like buttons and innovative tie and wrap techniques. With respect to females in eastern Balochistan, one of the most iconic costumes is the Bukti Chola, a style that has persisted for years. The classical structure of women's shirts, referred to as Gagga or Chola in eastern Balochistan, is characterized by the absence of the long pocket, prevalent in all other cultural regions. Well, not all, but prevalent in other cultural regions of Balochistan. This is a vintage tiki or roundel neckpiece, a style that appears in its finest versions within the embroideries of Bukti and Khetran groups, particularly the latter. This distinct shape, displayed in various finesse and techniques, extends across eastern Balochistan and southern Punjab. It also reaches northwards into the Pashtun areas. This is a vintage chola from a Bukti tribe settled in Sindh, featuring intricate embroidery combining many different types of surface stitches, including the hurmit or interlace stitch, commonly associated with Sindh. And here we have a traditional Murray gala, embroidered in minute counted thread needlework by the Kohi Murray or Mountain Murray tribes. Their traditional style features a defined V-shaped neck embroidery over a heavily pleated and gathered wide skirt. The two oval openings on either side, just below the gala, are made to facilitate breastfeeding. On the left is a classic Khetran chola, featuring yet again the roundel motif, strictly employing surface embroidery. Notable features of the Khetran tiki version include pom-poms on various points over the chola. On the right, a Mazari costume. A distinguishing feature of contemporary Mazari embroidery is the enthusiastic use of star motifs in all sizes, often accompanied by mirror embroidery and sequins applied with a very loose hand. But in the older piece we show here, the embroidery exhibits far more finesse in its execution. Laghari costumes feature a precise placement of motifs, with intricate counted thread embroidery in the cheek or neckpiece. And now for jewelry in eastern Balochistan. This photograph shows a Bukti bride wearing an array of jewelry: Tawni, a forehead ornament; Nat, a nose ornament; Panara, ear ornament; and Taw, a neck ornament. Many pieces of jewelry resemble those worn in Sindh. With respect to ear ornaments, the one on the left shows the drooping of the ear cartilage caused by the combined weight of all the balis or chika. The drooping ear is considered an auspicious sign, demonstrating the wealth of the wearer's family. On the right is an unusual piece of bukti jewelry affixed at the crown of the head, known as chulum or ladzu. The purpose of the chulum is to distribute the weight from the earlobe, which holds the heavy pandra earring.
Those were volumes 1 to 4 in the Balochistan Nama. I will very quickly, in a minute, summarize what comes subsequently in 5, 6, and 7, read you one short Baloch ballad, and we move into Naheed Jafri's stunning conclusion on Baloch embroideries, their motifs, the migration of motifs, and the international footprint of the motifs that have come into the system. These are volume 5, 6, and 7. They are Khanate specific. As Martin Axman, who's here, will vouch for me, I think that the history of Balochistan as a historical tract is usually Khanate-centric. Volume 5 is on the period from 1666, the rise of the Khanate of Kalat, although it takes in earlier trends like the great Baloch migrations. You must remember, Kalat and Balochistan were like an empty land which was between three empires: Persia, the northern empires, or the northern tribes that pushed down into Iran, and of course the Delhi Sultanate on the right. And at various stages, this migration was felt. Volume 5 shows the careful sidestepping policies of the Khans of Kalat, which led to a kind of movement to procure land, areas of surplus. It was a tribal chiefdom which almost became a small regional empire. But the death of Mir Nasir Khan and the lackluster ability of some of his followers, not to mention the contradictions within the Kalat tribal chiefdom and British imperialism, were not to allow that development to take place. Here in volume 5, you can see the period 1666 to 1893. By 1893, we are prepared for the major deposition of Khudadat Khan, the Khan of Kalat. And if you go to the next volume, here you can see Khudadat Khan with two of his sons who succeeded, Mir Nasir Khan on the left, and I think that is Mir Azam standing in between. Mir Azam standing in between. The little grave at the back is a look back to a Khan who was exiled from his own territory by the British. If Kalat was an independent Khanate, how was the Khan of Kalat under trial by the British for moving against his own subjects? They used the fig leaf of a British national from Shal, but that's not the story. That, in the photograph of Captain Southey in 1911 or 12, is the grave of Khudadat Khan at the back in an original image, which is juxtaposed against moments of finery in Kalat. If you go to volume 7, 7 is the inevitable accession of Kalat to Pakistan when its feudatories sided, who had been trained well by Sandaman, sided against the Khanate. I'm not saying the Khanate was blameless. And there is the genesis of Baloch nationalism earlier on, but none of this is pivotal. What is pivotal is that Baloch nationalism is a product after 1947, not before it. The book ends in 1947. And of course, Haroon, understandably, the Nosharwanis were always Bolshi and independent or semi-independent. They didn't even get on with Sandaman sometimes. The Jams of Lasbela had just returned from exile in the mid-1870s when the treaty was signed. And they leaned towards the British because they weren't marriage alliances apart, they weren't very fond of the Khans of Kalat themselves politically. But I think the important factor is that Makran, which was a territory frequently raided by the Khans, and distinct in social structure and geographical structure, was never a feudatory and became part of the three feudatories that pulled away along with the massive territory of British Balochistan and Sindhi. Kalat was a shrinking state. As Ahmad Yar Khan must have thought, it's time to go home. So that ends volume 7. Volume 8 is on the arts, and that's the last volume. And I'll read a short part of volume 8. We've taken Longsword Dames, collection of ballads, and some more. One is a particularly anti-colonialist ballad, the Ballad of Mir Hamal, which is sung throughout Balochistan, but presumably comes either from the Dashtis or the Rinds in the south of Balochistan. Mir Hamal was captured by the Portuguese in the 16th century, who for a time made a beeline before the Portuguese were pulled back from India, mostly apart from Goa. The poem is poignant, and I'll read it to you. Thou sisters of Mir Hamal, do not wash the bodies of your dead anymore on Saturdays, for Saturdays are not auspicious for bearing brothers. Nor is the 16th of the moon favorable to the good fortune of fathers. 7 days and 7 nights the ship continued to sail ceaselessly. On the 7th day, the boat touched the shores of Portugal. Here you can see Lisbon and Mir Hamal in an original creation for Naheed Jafri by the D Studio. 7 days and 7 nights the ship continued to sail ceaselessly. On the 7th day, the boat touched the shores of Portugal. At the time of his capture, Hamal's enemy's ship looked heavy with his bird-like feathers. You can see the bird-like feathers of that boat, the ship there. No wonder Hamal's small vessel was easily surrounded by the enemy. The Portuguese demanded that Hamal marry a European girl. But Hamal does not like European girls. Why? Because European girls do not wash their eyes, nor do they pronounce the name of God. Instead, they devour bunches of dates with unclean flies hovering over them. Their garments hang above their knees, their navels are exposed to indecent views, their prayers to God are both strange and unsuitable, nor do they recite them as in the Muslim way of prayer. Hamal loves his native girls from Kech with their intoxicating eyes. They wear long shirts and baggy shalwars. They cover their heads with shawls. The Portuguese tied the hands of Hamal with coarse speckled ropes. With the speckled and thickly twisted ropes, these ropes were like ropes which control lusty camels during the mating season. At the time of his capture, Hamal called out to his fighting comrades, but his comrades were cowardly Dashtis. Their heartless actions proved as futile as the embers of tamarisk firewood, bursting with short and sudden violence and quickly dying out. The Meds also futilely sent him a secret message, saying they would rescue him, but all was in vain. And Hamal says, O battle axe, I have cherished thee as my own child. I have loved thee as I have loved my dearest beloved daughter. Why hast thou abandoned Hamal's lion-like hands and fallen into the deep waves of the ocean, now drowned and lost forever? O migrating birds, take with thee the story of my sad condition. Describe my misery to the youths of Kalmat. Tell Hairu, Shadad, Gulamo, and Tali what has befallen on the head of the possessor of these paper-thin, parched lips. Mine sisters, from today, grind not golden, fragrant wheat for my evening meal. Do not fatten rams with special care for my hearty stews. On my empty seat, do not lay any bedding with embroidered sheets. Do not knit delicate tassels for my chestnut steed's forehead. Henceforth, my lonely chestnut steed will graze in empty pastures. My vigorous sword will be fixed lifeless in the waistcloth of my orphaned son. And like the sunshine of a golden sun, benumbed by the loss of voluntary motion. Only 3 or 4 groups will rejoice at the death of Mir Hamal in Portugal. The maids of Jaho, the swiftly running deer of fertile Rajaro, the newly born ibex herds will ask their friends to rejoice. They will announce to their mothers, leave the mountain and allow us to graze happily and untended in the vast rolling meadows. We have no dangers to fear anymore from Mir Hamal's ravenous appetite. Hamal Jand has passed away. Now there is no one left to shoot and kill us. That is the ballad which forms part of the collection of ballads by Lonsworth Dames, but not this particular one. There are some other ballads which have been translated to put together an idea on the 8th last volume of the Arts. And then, in case you thought Naheed Jafri is no more with us, she is, because then comes this amazing conclusion on the Baloch embroideries, which shows the importance of Baloch embroideries in the interplay of cultural forces in this region. Naheed, over to you.
Thank you, Hameed. This is the 8th volume. The eye of the spiral that has taken me along a very, very circular route led to me preparing these volumes and is now ending at its innermost point, this epilogue. This is a tentative manifesto for further research into the much greater intricacies of Baloch and Pashtun aesthetics and material culture. Let us first explore Balochistan's archaeology and regional evolution of the Baloch in relation to the civilization of the larger region. Balochistan, an eastern extension of the Iranian plateau, houses a collection of ancient settlements nestled within valleys and the Baloch Piedmont, including Mehergarh, one of the earliest known Neolithic sites in South Asia. These sites served as a crucial routes connecting the Indus Plain with Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and Iran. Pottery shards serve as a durable testament to a culture's artistic expression over millennia. Unlike textiles, which easily deteriorate, remarkably, motifs on archaeological pottery from western Balochistan and textiles within Balochistan share similar outlines or grids. Additionally, pottery from Iraq, Iran, Turkmenistan, and Afghanistan, as well as cultures further away, exhibit motifs resembling those found in Balochistan's contemporary textiles. This geographical pattern hints at a widespread circulation of people and ideas over vast distances. This shown here is a comparison of Baloch embroidery motifs with pottery specimens associated with the Neolithic age of Nal pottery culture, found mainly in southern Balochistan. The geometric motifs observed in Nal pottery exhibit connections to the Iranian plateau. Notably, the step-like patterns were prevalent not only in the local region, but also across the border expanse, including Central Asia and southeastern areas of Iran. Shown here is a comparison of Baloch motifs with pottery associated with that of KGB culture, distinguished by its intricate wide geometric patterns set against a black slate. This pottery style spread over a vast area from southern Afghanistan, Kandahar region, to northern and central Balochistan. This is thought as being of external origin, related to an influence from Mesopotamia or southern Turkmenistan. Almost all designs in the Baloch embroidery context are based on geometrical constructs with an absence of animal forms, but for one or two extremely stylized motifs. One such motif is known as ram's horns and is used by the Bukti tribe, where it is termed mehlav. The same motif appears in a more naturalistic form in pottery from Nal and Meherkar. The embroideries of Balochistan echo the historical forces shaping the region's destiny. This study highlights the impact of ancient trade routes, conquests, intermarriages, and migrations on material culture. Balochistan's pivotal position between the Indus and Iranian plateau played a crucial role in shaping a composite culture, fostering connections with Central Asia. The Silk Route further unfolds intricate linkages between diverse regions. The comparison of Baloch embroidery motifs shown today with other embroidery traditions aims to illustrate visual relationships and uncover complex reasons for this cultural interplay. Here, in this most unlikely of similarities, is the feel and shape of Toda embroidery motifs with those used in Balochistan. The Todas are settled in the Nilgiri hills in South India. What is outstanding is as if the same hand had drawn or created motifs from Balochistan with this particular kind of counter thread embroidery that has traveled all the way to the hills of Tamil Nadu with merely a few lines changed here and there. What could possibly account for this similarity is more difficult to pin down. There are many theories about the Todas, a tribe of Dravidian descent, or how a fragment of the Proto-Dravidian people settled in the lands of Balochistan, perhaps as Brahis, who were thought to be so by certain scholars. It is also possible that both share the same origin but a different route of dispersion. It is also pertinent that Arabs had been trading with the Indian peninsula for centuries. So much so that recent discoveries have unearthed manuscripts written in the Arabic script with words in Tamil. It is then not difficult to trace the lineage of embroidery motifs, most probably impacted by the textiles brought over by the Arabs. Another example is the intriguing similarities between the spatial distribution of embroidery on the costume and the look and feel of some motifs, visually evident and sometimes startling, between the traditional embroidery styles of Syria and Palestine, with specific schools of embroidery in Balochistan, such as the Bukti. This is significant as the main tribes living in the bare and hilly region to the far east of Balochistan, the Maris, along with their neighboring tribe, the Buktis, and some Baloch tribes of southern Punjab, claim to be factions of the Rind Baloch, who, according to their own oral traditions, believe their original home to have been Aleppo in Syria. Another similar aspect is the presence of the embroidered and inverted V shape on the front of some costumes from Palestine and Syria, much like the pocket of western and southern and central Balochistan costumes. Yet another fascinating intersection lies in the motifs of North African Berber textiles and Baloch embroidery. Despite the vast geographical expanse from the Atlas Mountains in Morocco to Balochistan, these woven and embroidered textiles share striking resemblances. The Berber carpets feature simple geometric forms, possibly originating from Near Eastern Neolithic culture, which have persisted over time due to the remote characteristics of the region and the tenacity of Berber culture. Beyond the Berber style carpets, Morocco boasts a rich tapestry of carpet styles, which do present a diversity of motifs similar to Baloch embroidery. This Moroccan kiln, based on Berber motifs, is another extraordinary example that exhibits a wide variety of motifs found in various regions of Balochistan. The main elongated stepped rectangle, also known as the eye, an evil eye motif, appears in woven textiles from Nushki in western Balochistan. It also occurs in central Balochistan embroidery, as do the small cross motifs that surround the rectangle, while the grand chevron on the side is a quintessential Bukti motif. Another group shown within the epilogue is the Karala Kalpaks. Here we see the correlation between the embroidered designs of these people, a group who live on the shores of the Aral Sea, compared with the random selection of motifs from various tribal groups of Balochistan. While this group are Muslims, they continue to uphold many cultural practices that antedate their conversion to Islam. Many motifs date from the ancient past, and why so many pre-Islamic motifs should also recall embroidery in Balochistan is a subject for further research. These two examples require no comment. Both are embroidered in the same Florentine stitch, in the same proportions, and in very similar colors. Here the border in the Kerala Park embroidery seen with a black background has motifs that are almost exactly like the central Balochistan motif seen in a cheek. Anatolia, historically recognized as Asia Minor and geographically as part of Western Asia, is a key region in the origin of kilims. The mother goddess hypothesis suggests an indigenous weaving tradition dating back to the Neolithic period. Archaeological finds reveal silk weaving techniques and geometric designs. Anatolia, as the heartland of the Ottoman Empire, played a central role in disseminating kilim motifs across Southeast Europe, Western Asia, North Africa, and beyond. A much larger and more dominant group of Central Asia, the Turkomen, have witnessed a tumultuous past dictated by migration. Settled Turkomen tribes are found within the area bordered by the Caspian Sea. Amudarya River, Karakoram Mountains, and the Karakum Desert, going further into the steppes of northern Iran and Afghanistan. A large number of intermarriages have taken place amongst the Turkoman and Turkic tribes of Uzbekistan, resulting in a greater loss of immediate tribal identity. The Yomut people, one of the only Turkoman tribes from West Turkestan and Iran, continue to produce kilims, while in northern Afghanistan, the group of Irsari Turkoman also weave kilims and bags. A lozenge with hooked extensions is a common motif found within the Yomut kilims. Amongst the Yomut kilims woven in northwest Afghanistan, yet another motif bears a resemblance to a Baloch embroidery motif known as Murke Padak or chicken feet. A stylistic grid of repeated chevrons found in a kilim from North Afghanistan, woven by the Yomut or Irsari Turkmen. This was reminiscent of a central Baloch embroidered design. Ostensibly, the chevron grid within the kilim also suggests Uzbek influence. The kilims woven in Maimana, the capital and market town of Faryab province, north of Afghanistan, bear a close resemblance to some of the embroidered motifs of Balochistan. Here I conclude my journey. Sometimes it seems to me that a fistful of motifs have been scattered from high above, flickering down over large areas of our world. These motifs then seem to settle into somewhat individual shapes, but all the while continue to preserve their core identity. The paramount embroidery artists in Balochistan are women, who play a crucial role in keeping this art alive. They are most often primary breadwinners in their families. Their meticulous work amidst daily tasks sustains households and fosters better lives for their children. These discussions on embroidery and weaving are ultimately a heartfelt tribute to the women of this region. Here I leave this subject for further exploration, for far more intricate details and connections, all of them waiting to be discovered. In closing, I dedicate this presentation on Balochistan Nama to the women of Palestine and Balochistan. Both groups have learned the delicate art of survival, but demonstrated a steely resolve to retain their basic values and not to bow down to the forces of history that have attempted to incapacitate their skin.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would request a standing ovation for 79-year-old Dynamo Naheed Jafri. Thank you. Two small comments. I'm going to ask the famed political scientist and author of the book Galat Back to the Future, Martin Axman, to please share a few sentiments, a very short comment from the stage on Naheed's presentation. What he has seen of the Balochistan Nama, Mr. Axman has decided to have, with the permission of his publisher, Oxford University Press, large extracts of his book, Back to the Future, which is now out of print, to be included in the Balochistan Nama, free of cost, as every other major European academic has done. Thank you, Martin.
Well, thank you very much for having me here this evening. What I saw today is really the best collection, documentation, and presentation of Baloch art and culture I have ever seen. It is also the best visualization of Baloch history I've ever seen, and I'm really thrilled and overwhelmed by the richness that the country of the Baloch people has to offer. I'm really thankful to Ms. Jafri for taking on this project and working on it for more than 13 years in order to document, preserve, and present the richness of the country of Balochistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. One last comment, please. Hussein Islam, who is going to be spearheading our publication and fundraising effort. Would you please come to the stage and make a few comments? You have to go beyond the blue economy now into the multicultural embroidery economy. Come along. A quick comment from you.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, madam. I won't speak much. It's a huge task, but we believe in this project. And as all of you are here, you believe in this project. And I'll be here spearheading this project financially, trying to get the donors together, trying to get people who have interest in this project. And inshallah, we'll make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hussein. Naheed, will you please be careful? Saina, would you help Naheed leave the stage? It's been a great ordeal. She has had injuries in the last 3 months, and we're very careful with her. What is following now is the short recital by Akhtar, Chanal, Zehri. Ladies and gentlemen, I can only promise you it is dynamic. The first session, the first song from Akhtar Chanal Zehri's presentation is With Respect, which is his song Habba Nanir Khan. It is linked to, I would request you to please sit down. Ferry, please sit down. Thank you. And this recital is short. It's half an hour. It's fascinating. The first Habba Nanir Khan is about Somiani Dam and how, when the British established a minor treaty port in Somiani in Lasbela, south of Kalat, how the prices rose up, and therefore, from the local inhabitants, Toba Toba. And before that, Akhtar will give a dedication of his concert to Naheed Jafri.
लश्कर सलाम अलैकुम ख्वाजा जोड़ तकड़ खैर मेरा सूद पे खैर बाव खना अल्लाह ना मेहरबानी को अल्लाह ना मेहरबानी को एनो ना जेबाव कचारी से दीबा बलूचिस्तान है माशाल्लाह खुल्ला मालव इतना जीजा नाहिद जाफरी साहब है ओना जोत ओना मेहनत ओना बलूचिस्तान तो मेहर मेरे ही सलाम पेश के बन अल्लाह पाक दोनों जीजा नने तिस कि नना दीब मड्डी ये मुझ करे ने ये सलाम पेश के बत भाई वाजे बाकी चंडे बड्डना अब हंगने बिसे लटगड्डना अंतों माता बड्डना बाग बांजे बाव बाग से छट की दर मुझ जाग से छट की दर पवा अर्दी मदर पवा जूजू बर केन कचारी उस्तना ईते मर्दा था उस्तना खलतेड बुरानो हो कना रंजड मस्तिंगा लो कना ओना अंजामे लो कना जी 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 सा कना ज़ेहरी घंटे जा कना जी ओ पैहबना निरखान ट्रेवल है सफर है ऐनो तीबा बलूचिस्तान सफर के ने इंशाल्लाह पैहबना निरखान तोबा तोबा उथलना रेकान तोबा तोबा ससीना इश्कान तोबा तोबा ओ तो बलोचान तोबा तोबा जी बातरा मेरे बलो जी बातरा पैहबना निरखान तोबा तोबा की उथलना निरखान तोबा तोबा की वो तो बलोचान तोबा तोबा दा रिंदना कौलान तोबा तोबा दा रिंदना जंगान तोबा तोबा की वो तो बलोचान तोबा तोबा दा सैयदना तोबा तोबा दा सैयदना पिटान तोबा तोबा ही कावे खलाता इल्ले कजी आहड़ उशा कने इल्ले कने कावे खलाता इल्ले कने नसी थाना मुल्का इल्ले कने दोदा खाना मुल्का इल्ले कने मामू खाना मुल्का इल्ले कने नसी खाना मुल्का इल्ले कने आहड़ उशा कने इल्ले कने कावा कलाता इल्ले कने बरी ना लश्कर इल्ले कने ज़हरी ना लठान इल्ले कने वीर ना घटान तोबा तोबा वो वीर ना घटान तोबा तोबा धरने दीना छत्तर तोबा तोबा धरने दीना छत्तर तोबा तोबा के रईस ना मातान तोबा तोबा के रईस ना अकलान तोबा तोबा के इल्ले कने ही बाबाजी इल्ले कने मौजी ओ बनानीर खान तोबा तोबा वाहब बनानीर खान तोबा तोबा की उथल नारी खान तोबा तोबा की वो तोबा लोचान तोबा तोबा दा मरीना लश्कर तोबा तोबा ही खड़ा था इल्ले कने गाजी का मुर्गा इल्ले कने जी
Abananir Khan was that legendary average Mr. Smith of Hub who saw the prices escalate in the treaty port as the trade moved in from British India. The second ballad is a great ballad, very rarely sung, Noora Mangal. It is one of the great anti-colonial ballads. It is absolutely fixed in the activities of Noora Mangal in 1908 in the Great Jhalawar Revolt, which shook British Balochistan and shook Balochistan Agency. And Noora Mangal, from the Pelwanzai sub-tribe of the Mangals, rose against the British. When he was defeated, he went to the Nawab of Haroon for help, Nawab Habibullah, who surrendered him to the British and did not send him to Afghanistan. So he died in jail. The second ballad in today's program is a patriotic, anti-colonial ballad, ladies and gentlemen, Noora Mangal.
भाई शहीदा ता यादगारा दुनिया की जिंदा हो नुम पापा वो कहो कि शहीदा जिंदा हो ला यमूत अल्लाह बाइक कसब से शहीदा कसुल आयात पाइक जिंदा हो पोशीदा हो जी भाई नूरा नूरा हम जन्ना मारे नूरा नूरा हम जन्ना मारे कसीफे ने कफितान जारे कसीफे ने कफितान जारे ननाबो में तलाना जिंदा बचपना दोस्त की दिखा मारा बिंदास नूरा नूरा हम जन्ना मारे नूर जाकना हम जन्ना मारे कसीफे ने कफितान जारे कसीफे ने कफितान जारे ननाबो में तलाना जिंदा बचपना दोस्त की दिखा मारा बिंदास नूरा नूरा हम जन्ना मारे जीवा Tukan shefi dagar tane jabi Tukan shefi dagar tane jabi Tukan shefi dagar tane jabi Do dakiti zagmana labi Do dakiti zagmana labi Nanabo me talana jinda Balkana dosti ki khar wara binda Noora noora hum zanna mare Noor jankana hum zanna mare Kasife ne kafitan jare Kasife ne kafitan jare Nanabo me talana jinda Balkana dosti ki khar wara bindas Noora noora hum zanna mare La मेरा जीता ने छिक्का शिराजीज मेरा जीता ने छिक्का लालू बेगल संगरांड्रिका लालू बेगल संगरांड्रिका नना भूमे तल्लाना जिंदा मलकन दोस्ती तिखार द्वारा वृंदा दूरा दूरा हम जना मारे नूर जागना हम जना मारे कसी फेने का फितान जारे कसी फेने का फितान जारे नना भूमे तल्लाना जिंदा मलकन दोस्ती तिखार द्वारा वृंदा दुकान शेफी डगातने छाबी दुकान शेफी डगातने छाबे दुकान शेफी डगातने छाबे दो दखीटी जमना लाबे ओए माई कपबो कीरा ओए माई कपबो कीरा सब खल्लिंग में गंगा पीरो
Third composition is a very typical composition in Bravi. You know, Akhtar Chanal Zehri is a master of his art. He's a national treasure. Kane Uste Ladi Darene is about the love in the heart of the pastoral nomad shepherd on the heights of Jhalawan before he reaches the Bula Pass on the way to his winter residence in Kachi. My beloved has stolen my heart, sings the pastoral nomad. Akhtar, chota se ye karo.
ये बेहतर पायमोनी रवाने संगतस को सारना जोरा वरे मस्ते गनो के इश्कटी द्रुंदे बेहद खुद सरे मरगान जिंदा बेसमा इरजान ओ बाला तरे शिकरा से शाबाज से घट्टो गराता शापरे मोनी तलारां शमतियां देखेंगे दानस बश करे शागा निगाह वो संगता मोने तेना बुर्जा करे दे पाए शेरस मुतकुनो बाबू सिरोंजी ये बरे शेरस खले वो मुस्तना ऐनो नने दे दी करे ऐनो नने दे दी करे फटना बावारस पैकना बुस्ते लाडी दरेने कना बुस्ते दाजिबा दरेने कन्ये बीमारे लाचार करेने कन्ये बीमारे मजबूर करेने कना बुस्ते लाडी दरेने कना बुस्ते दा सोना दरेने कन्ये बीमारे लाचार करेने कन्ये बीमार मजबूर करेने
Item in the recital, ladies and gentlemen, is the song, the patriotic song about love for one's homeland, for Balochistan, for Balochistan's place within Pakistan, that Akhtar Chanal Zehri has made famous. If you look at a man like this who has no money, he has no visible sign of wealth. When he was performing with us in the Sufi festival in New York, and he had to appear at the Asia Society Forum with his music. He was electric. He was called a Bravi rocker. MDTV offered him $80,000 for a 1-hour special on Saturday night in New York. He turned it down because he said, Mohatta Palace Museum is paying me 10,000 rupees for my whole tour. my music belongs to New York. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, his music belongs to you. It's Dana Badana, the little grains. There are so many thousands of grains in the world. I want to be able to choose my grain. My grain is my mountains, my Sufis, my hovel, my villages, all these normal things, my goats, my sheep. This is my life. This is my Dana, Dana Badana.
अरे खती खबड़ी बशबो साफ दे ठिकते सुने अरे पीरन मा जंगी खाने ना भूले बेबाला सिद्धे सरमंदास खाने खा अरे नरोबी बाव कला चोरी कर नेरन कोगड़ा माले का शबाब सदखे पीरंगा कमा शाक मतल कशानो पारेनो दूडाली बाडाली पिट खाली चोरे पयुस्ते तोरे दाना पदान लंगड़ुं कान बावसत खाई चोर का नेरन को बड़ा अल्लाह संगति ने तू वो दाना पदाने अबू दाना पदाने आई दाना पदाने दाना ना पाई दूती लगाने नाना ना ओ दूती लगाने नाना ना ओ आज तपकने नाना ना ओ आज तपकने पामना ओ जी 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 साकना ए ज़ेरी बलबल जाकना ओ जी 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 मदरी बरेगी सबक तो अंदरी ओ जी जी सुमरो तब ख्वाज खुदा से ओ दाना पदाना दाना ना आई लगाने नाना ना ओ आज तपकने नाना ओ आज तपकने वामना ओ जी साकना ए ज़ेरी बलबल जाकना ओ जी मंदरी बरेगी सबक तो अंदरी ओ जी सुमरो तब ख्वाज खुदा से अरे लगती मौका मारे मुआ तेरे को ट्री जीवा खाना दादते बलूचिस्तान बरदीर उरद दुदरान हो नूरिया नसीर खान हे सब वतन के निजान अभी वक्त दस्तगीर बराबर वक्त दस्तगीर बराबर नूरी नसीर जान बराबर काजी नसीर जान बराबर सही कलंदर बराबर मस्त कलंदर बराबर सचल साईं बराबर बेज बिटाई बराबर वक्त दस्तगीर बराबर नूरी नसीर जान बराबर वो कल्लो वतने खाना दादते बलूचिस्तान बरदीरे उरद दुदराना ओ नूरिया नसीर खाना ए सब वतन के ने जानना ओ वक्त दस्तगीर बराबर वक्त दस्तगीर बराबर नूर नसीर जान बराबर गाज नसीर जान बराबर सही कलंदर बराबर मस्त कलंदर बराबर सचल साईं बराबर भेज पिटाई बराबर मसना मुसाना ओ शेख मसना मुसाना हे सिख वतन के ने जानना ओ नूरिया नसीर खाना हे सिख वतन के ने जानना अभी वक्त दस्तगीर बराबर वक्त दस्तगीर बराबर नूर नसीर जान बराबर गाजी नसीर जान बराबर सही कलंदर बराबर मस्त कलंदर बराबर वाजम कुरान बराबर शाह अब्दुल्ला जान बराबर नसीर जान बराबर गाजी नसीर जान बराबर सही कलंदर बराबर मस्त कलंदर
Thank you, Mohatta, for giving me the privilege for being managing trustee in my 25th year. Thank you to Naheed Jafri for allowing me to be an insignificant member of her team. And thank you to the audience, which Simon will do better.
सलाम अख्तर चनाल जहरी साहब और आपके साथी हम आपके बहुत ममनून हैं बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया Thank you ever so much for being with us and please now's the time when you get to get some refreshments. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you for that.